Well, there it is. You can see the engine transmission sitting in the chassis there. There's quite a few things that I'm going to want to redo here, things I don't like. But the fact that it's all in there makes me pretty happy. Let's talk a little bit about the budget part of this whole deal. That engine right there came out of a wrecking yard. It's a 2.5 liter out of a 2012 Fusion, and it works really good in my situation because I'm a horsepower to weight limited class. And in my case, I need to weigh about 2,500 pounds and I need to make about 165 horsepower. This engine right here makes about 172 stock, so it's really a good bolt-in. I basically can run it in stock configuration, not do anything, and then match the weight as needed. The transmission is a 5-speed out of a 2007 Focus. And this is where Ford kind of has a disadvantage compared to like a lot of the Honda products. There are not a lot of gear ratios available for a Ford transmission, where with the Hondas, you do have a lot of ratios available. So you could really tailor the transmission gearing to match the application, which you can't do with the Ford. The advantage of the Ford is that I have a little more torque than a lot of the Honda motors, and so I can come off the corners a little bit harder. Now, this engine was in the other race car, and it's one of those deals I didn't have to spend money on at this time. But the engine and transmission together, less than $800, and I really haven't done anything with the engine. The transmission, I spent $700 and put a limited slip differential in it, which makes a world of difference in the racing. Some things I want to redo. Number one, I had eliminated the rear alternator drive, brought the alternator to the front of the vehicle. The reason for that is because I generated a lot of heat off the header, and that would seem to be really impacting alternator life, and I don't want that. So I relocated the alternator to the front of the engine. Works really well. It helps me with my drive belt configuration. However, you could see there's a belt misalignment. The alternator sits too far forward as opposed to the rest of the pulleys. So I need to rebuild those mounts, move that alternator back, and get the pulleys lined up. The other thing I don't like is this mount assembly. I really just don't care for this. This is a combination of parts out of a Focus, a Fusion, and a Mazda 3. And just, it's cobbled together. I don't like it. I'm going to rebuild that mount. You'll notice that there's not a lot of electrical on this engine right now. There will be. I'm just rebuilding that harness. You also notice that up here, I eliminated the plastic fuel line that goes from the inlet over to the engine and put in braided line. The reason for that is really simple. I'm generating a lot of heat back here, and on the old car it got hot enough that I'd actually start melting wire insulation back here. That's a no-go, especially with the fuel line right there. That had to be redone. Finally, I think we're going to talk just a little bit about the kill switch. I don't believe there's a sanctioning body out there that will let you run with a race car without a kill switch. If you're wheel-to-wheel racing and you've relocated the battery, you have to have an external switch. I mounted mine up there on the cowl for a reason. Worst case scenario is I flip this car, it lands upside down, it's on fire, and I'm trapped inside, and for some reason the engine's still running. That kill switch is in probably the most protected place it can be in for track safety personnel to shut off main electrical in that worst case scenario. Is that ever going to happen? Maybe not. But remember, your chances of being killed by a duck are never zero. Anything can happen, and we're racing. I'm building this car because I had a pretty serious accident with the old car and a lot of damage was done. So you have to account for all the weirdness that goes along with wheel-to-wheel racing. So that's about all I got on the engine transmission. Next steps are to build the exhaust system, get the fuel tank back in it. Fuel tank was removed previously because we're doing a lot of welding in the chassis, and I just don't think it's a good idea to be doing a lot of welding when you've got gas fumes in the car. So that's all I got for right now. I will check in later.